Hi, we're reading through a 1917 cookbook called A Thousand Ways to Please a Husband. And right now we're going to read chapters 12 and 13. Chapter 12, Bettina's father tries her cooking. I should tell you, if you haven't been with us before, you might want to start at chapter 1 because this is a story. It's an instructional novel. And Bettina, the main character, is giving us directions about homemaking, and she's a newlywed, so she's very excited about learning things to do in her kitchen, and she shares her recipes with us as well. And then after I read the story for the chapter, we discuss the differences from 1917 to today and preferences and so forth. So, chapter 12, Bettina's father tries her cooking. So, she is about to try her cooking on me, is she? Said Bettina's father to Bob as he sat down at the table. Well, I'll admit that I have looked forward to this all day. But there was a time when I was a little more skeptical of Bettina's culinary skill. You know, when Mother was in California 2 years ago last winter. Now, Charlie, you know that all girls have to learn at some time or other, interrupted Bettina's mother. And I believe that Bob has fared pretty well, considering that Bettina is just beginning to keep house. I should say so, said Bob heartily. Why, I'm getting fat. I was weighed today, and don't say any more, Bob. We'll rent the house and take to boarding. If you get fat, no boarding houses for mine. Not after your cooking, Bettina. I had enough of boarding before I was married. Say, how long ago was that? Say, how long ago that does seem. Has the time dragged as much as that? Well, I'll change the subject. Dad, how do you like my Japanese garden? I think it's pretty, don't you? I certainly do, my dear. What are those feathery things? Why, don't you know that, Father? And when you were a boy, you worked on a farm one summer, too. There's a parsnip and a horseradish and a beet. Then there are a few parsley seeds and grass seeds on a tiny sponge. And see the little shells and stones that Bob and I collected for it? Yes, we found that pink stone up the river on a picnic a year ago last May, before we were engaged. Or were we engaged then, Bettina? And the purple one, oh, you needn't reminisce, Bettina interrupted hastily. Eat your dinner. Every little stone has a meaning all its own, every little shell, but it wouldn't do to tell. I composed that poem just this minute, said Bob, undisturbed. Will you help me get the dessert now, Robert? And are you ready, Mother and Father? Yes, indeed. A very fine dinner, Bettina. We never have steak fixed this way at home, do we, Mother? Can we try it some day soon? I have something for dessert that you like, Dad. Guess what? What is it? Oh, lemon pie. That is fine, I can tell you. But I know already that it won't be as good as your mother's. Still, we'll try it and see. That evening for dinner, Bettina served deviled steak, new potatoes in cream, baking powder biscuits with jelly, cucumber and radish salad, lemon pie, and coffee. And here we have the recipes for deviled steak, baking powder biscuit, cucumber and radish salad, and lemon pie, including the pie crust and the meringue. Now we're going to move on to chapter 13. Bob helps with the dinner. Here, Bettina, let me mash those potatoes. It's fine exercise after a day at the office. And Bob seized the potato masher with the same vigor that he used to handle a tennis racket. Good for you, Bob. They can't have a single lump in them after that. About the most unappetizing thing I can think of is lumpy mashed potato, or mashed potato that is heavy and unseasoned. More milk? You'd better use plenty. Here. Now, watch me toss them lightly into this hot dish and put a little parsley and a lump of butter on top. There, doesn't that look delicious? I should say so. And look at the fancy tomatoes, each one with a cover. What on earth is inside? Just wait till you taste them. They're a new invention of mine, and I do believe they'll make a splendid luncheon dish for the next time that Ruth is here, or Alice brings her sewing over. I'm practicing on you first, you see, and if you survive and seem to like them, I may use them for a real company dish. You can't frighten me that way. Creamed chicken? Creamed veal. Don't you remember that we had what we had for dinner last night? There were 2 chops left, and I made it of them. I know it is good when made of cold veal roast, but I have never tried it with cold veal chops. So again, I am experimenting on you, Bobby. You don't frighten me so easily as that. I've just caught a glimpse of something that looks like coconut cake, and I'll be happy now no matter how the rest of the dinner tastes. There, everything is on, Bob. Let's sit down to dinner, and you tell me all about your day. Dinner consisted of creamed veal, mashed potatoes, stuffed tomatoes Bettina, bread with butter, sliced peaches and cream, coconut cake, and iced tea. And today we have the recipe for the creamed veal, the mashed potatoes, and the stuffed tomatoes Bettina. And we'll dive in and discuss these 2 chapters. Thank you. Welcome to Beautiful Thrift Homemaking. We are reading through a 1917 cookbook called 1,000 Ways to Please a Husband, and we are on chapter 14. This is also an instructional novel for homemakers, following a year in the life of a young newlywed couple, Bettina and Bob. So Bettina is a new homemaker, and she's very enthusiastic, and she gives us a lot of tips, and she shares all her recipes with us. And it's been fun to discuss these chapters after we read them. So stick with me if you like that kind of thing, if you enjoy vintage homemaking, if you enjoy talk of foods and recipes and such, then come join us and think about going back to chapter 1 so you can get in at the beginning of the story. So we're on chapter 14, a Sunday evening tea. What kind of tea is this? Ruth inquired one Sunday evening on the porch. Why, this is a mixture of green and black tea, said Bettina. I like that better for iced tea than either kind alone. I like tea, said Fred, although perhaps that isn't considered a manly sentiment in this country. I hope you do too, Ruth. Nothing seems so cozy to me as tea and toast. And I like iced tea like this in the summertime. An uncle of mine is very fond of tea and has offered to send me some that he considers particularly fine. I believe that orange pekoe is his favorite. I think that has the best flavor of all, said Bettina, though just now we are using an English breakfast tea that we like very much, and the green tea mixed with it is Japan tea. I've heard my uncle say that pekoe means white hair and is applied to young leaves because they are covered with a fine white down. Uncle also says that black teas are considered more wholesome than green because they contain less tannin. I tell you, he's a regular connoisseur. I see that I must become an expert tea maker, said Ruth. I'm learning something new about Fred every day. Bettina, do tell me exactly how you make tea. Fred can listen too, unless he already knows. Well, let's see, Ruth. I take a level teaspoonful of tea to a cup of water. I put the tea in a scalded earthenware teapot. That kind is better than metal. And pour boiling water over it, fresh water. Then I cover it and allow it to steep from 3 to 5 minutes. Then I strain and serve it. You know, tea should always be freshly made and never warmed over. It shouldn't be boiled either, not a second. Boiling or too long steeping brings out the tannin. But how about iced tea? That has to stand. It shouldn't steep, though. I make it just like any tea and strain it. Then I let it cool and set it on the ice for 3 or 4 hours. I serve it with chipped ice, lemon, and mint. Mother always added a cherry to her afternoon tea, said Ruth. That would be great, said Bob. I don't care much for hot tea, but I believe I would be willing to drink a cup for the sake of the cherry. Ruth, said Bettina, I know now what I will give you for an engagement present, since Fred likes tea too. A silver tea ball. Surely that will symbolize comfort and fireside cheer. Speaking of firesides, asked Bob, what material have you decided upon for your fireplace? It seems to me that we're talking too much about tea making and not enough about house building. That evening, Bettina served salmon salad with jellied vegetables, Boston brown bread sandwiches, sliced fresh peaches, 1 egg cake, chocolate icing, and iced tea. And in this book, we have the recipe for the salmon salad with jellied vegetables. And yes, it does have gelatin in it. And we have the recipe for the 1 egg cake and the chocolate icing for the cake. All right, so join me for the deep discussion. All right, so now to discuss chapters 12 and 13. Mom and Dad, father and mother, are visiting for dinner, and Bettina's going to serve her father dinner that she prepared, and he's a little bit nervous and commenting on how he did not know that if the meal would be good. And then he did approve of it in the end, didn't he? So that's good. So in chapter 13, we have Bettina talking about mashed potatoes, and she says they're the best if they're not dry. So to add plenty of milk and butter and to beat them really well so that they are nice and smooth. And those are her tips with mashed potatoes. So she appreciated Bob's help smoothing those out. And she also said that Bob shouldn't worry too much about her experiments, but that she was going to kind of use him as their guinea pig for new recipes. And she was going to make the stuffed tomatoes. And that was an experiment. So it's okay to experiment. And then when you have guests, you'll have tried and true recipes that you can serve them. And I liked that Bettina asked Bob to tell her about his day when they were sitting down to eat. So that's a sweet thing to do, and important to keep those lines of communication open, right? And then she mentions peaches and cream. And I don't know if you've had that, but it's a great old-fashioned dessert. Very simple. Slice up some fresh peaches and pour a little bit of heavy whipping cream over them. Just a little bit. And sometimes maybe a teaspoon of sugar. And it is a wonderful treat. Very simple. And again, it uses the fresh fruit of the season of summer. So I hope you enjoyed chapter 13, and then we'll move on to 14. All right. Well, my camera cut out on me. I ran out of space on my memory or something like that. So let me see if I can cover chapter 14 without having that happen again. And I'll try to take care of that. So what kind of tea is this? Ruth inquired. And Bettina told us about her green tea and black tea mixture. And I did show you that I gave that a try. I think I needed to water it down a little bit more. And I told you that I don't care for lemon in my tea, as it turns out, right? So otherwise, fine. It's fine. Iced tea, I love iced tea, and prefer it over hot tea, actually. So how about you? Do you want to have some iced tea on the porch and on a summer evening? Yeah, that sounds nice, doesn't it, with friends? Yeah. So they're having a great time, and tannin is mentioned. That boiling tea would bring out the tannin and make it stronger. Same with squeezing the tea bag, by the way. So what is tannin? Tannin. Tannin is an astringent substance that's found in lots of different foods, and it is actually an anti-inflammatory, and that's what makes tea good for you. And it's antimicrobial, but it is astringent, so it does dry out the mouth. Has that effect on us. And did you know that when we talk about leather being tanned, that it comes from tannin, because tannins were used in the tanning process of a leather, which is the process used to preserve leathers, to make them supple and keep them long lasting and soft. So that's kind of neat, isn't it? All right. So that's our chapter 14, the evening tea. Let's see, did I have anything else? Salmon salad with jellied vegetables. Again, she's using gelatin and mixing non-sweet things in with it, mixing mixed vegetables and bouillon. I personally don't think I'd like these jellied foods that are savory. One egg cake sounds kind of like a simple cake that is very, very basic. One egg cake, of course, has one egg in it and some butter, sugar, milk, flour, baking powder, and vanilla. So very plain. And it's covered with chocolate icing. All right. So that was the dessert for that evening on the porch. Now, we'll move on to chapter 15 in our next episode. Thank you for joining me. And remember, if you want to, you could subscribe, which would really be a blessing to me because it would encourage me to keep going and know that that you're finding some inspiration and interest in these videos as we read through the cookbook from 1917. Thank you.